And live in the studio with me is conservative writer and tax attorney and co-founder of Schaefer and Trotter PLC, a law firm, right?
Yes.
You're a lawyer.
Yes.
Is Gayle Trotter. Her website is Gayle, G-A-Y-L-E, Trotter, T-R-O-T-T-E-R.com. And she most recently has written a piece for The Hill, thehill.com, that is titled Fix the Tax Code to Stop Offshore Exodus of U.S. Companies. Gayle, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So the premise of your piece.
The premise of my piece is that our corporate tax policy is in complete disrepair, and we have a very simple way that we could fix this to lower the corporate tax rate, but instead we have many liberal pundits saying that we need to invoke patriotism to keep these U.S. corporations on American soil, when the easier solution is just to lower the tax rate.
Well, you have 100 of the 400 largest corporations in America paying no taxes at all last year. You've got 98% of all corporations paying no taxes, although that number's a little fudgy because probably 95% of all corporations are little operations,
Yes.
you know, like this show, which is a corporation. And at the end of the year, if you got any money left over, instead of paying taxes on it, you buy a new copy machine, you know. For large corporations, I mean, you've got the corporate jet deduction. You've got the over $100 billion in various deductions for the oil industry.
Which we should get rid of.
Yeah,
we should get rid of and lower the corporate tax rate.
Manufactured in America deductions that Starbucks is using because they say roasting coffee is manufacturing. I mean, there's all these things. I don't disagree with you. I think that if we took our corporate tax rate down to 25% or 28% or something reasonable in the neighborhood of where the capital gains tax is, and did away with all the loopholes, that, you know, we'd be better off. But you and I both know that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen as long as our Supreme Court keeps saying that billionaires and corporations can buy politicians. We've got a much larger problem.
Those are unrelated issues. Those are unrelated, totally unrelated issues.
How do all these loopholes get written into law?
Because congressmen do not stick up for a fair tax code, and they are subject to influence. And instead of having, what is the point of the tax code? What is the point of the tax code? To collect revenue for the federal government.
No.
So the federal government can take care of the business that it needs to
I would say that's
accomplish.
The least important reason that you have a federal tax.
And that's where we would disagree.
Okay, I would say number one is to extract from companies and individuals an amount of revenue that reflects their use of the commons.
No,
right? If you've got a corporation that is using publicly educated employees at your and my expense, they're using the roads at your and my expense.
Because our public school system is so great.
It actually is. We're turning out high school graduates at a higher level than we have in the history of the United States.
Who can't compete globally. We're a global economy now, and the U.S. is so far down in schooling.
We can both make a good argument for having a better public health system, or public school system. But in any case, these corporations want to use all these things that we're paying for. The court system, more than half of the court system is paid for by you and me with our tax dollars. It's not paid by GE. They're not paying any damn taxes.
It's both. Think of Apple Corporation. That company
which is sitting on $100 billion offshore.
Exactly, because of the repatriation taxes. And if we don't get rid of these repatriation taxes, we're going to have over $1 trillion left overseas, where it cannot come back to the U.S. It cannot be invested in research. It cannot be invested in dividends to corporate shareholders.
So the way that Apple makes this money and keeps it offshore is by self-selling. I'm sure you're familiar with this. You got a product that you manufacture, you got $10 worth of manufactured cost. Ultimately, you're going to retail it for $100. You can sell it to yourself for the $10 manufactured cost, which then when you sell it for $100, you have a $90 profit, leaves the profit in the United States, and so you're subject to tax. Or you can sell it to yourself for $90 and sell it for $100 and show a $10 profit here and an $80 profit in China, leave the money over there in China and not pay any taxes on it.
That
is exploiting the American consumers.
No, that's a perfect example of perverse incentives on U.S. corporations.
It used to be illegal.
Apple, I will tell you, in 2012 was the largest corporate taxpayer. It paid $6 billion in taxes to the U.S.
They were
fisc.
one of the largest earners in the United States.
But they have to respond to economic incentives. And we have a global economy, and the U.S. has to compete for corporate taxpayers. So if you continue to try, not you, but if the congressional leaders and Obama continue to push for the corporate tax rate to be high, they're just going to move all of this money offshore. It's going to go to foreign treasuries. It's going to benefit foreign citizens and not American citizens.
Before the Reagan administration, you could not domicile yourself outside the United States for tax benefit. And you could not do self-dealing. If you tried doing that self-dealing, you'd get nailed for it. I mean, it's just, Reagan essentially rewrote the tax rules, and it's been getting worse and worse and worse ever since.
I would agree the tax rules have been getting worse and worse ever since the Tax Reform Act of 1986. We needed more of that. We need less complication. Every year the tax code grows, the Code of Federal Regulations grows. We have these horrible decisions that are made by tax
I started
board.
out saying I don't think that we collect taxes to pay for government. And to the extent that I think that we capture the costs that these companies inflict on their communities.
But see, that's Senator Warren's idea that you didn't build this road. I mean, we are paying for this. Companies are paying for this. We have the double taxation of corporations. When they pay taxes, when Apple pays $6 billion to the U.S. Treasury, who actually pays that tax? You and I do when we buy Apple products. It gets passed on.
The stockholders
and not only that,
it's money that didn't go to dividends.
No, it's money that didn't go to dividends, and it raises the cost of their products as well.
By the top 10% of Americans.
So you have retirees who are depending on the dividends, and they can't get the money because it's going to the United States Treasury or ultimately overseas.
Gail, it's not about the little guy. It's about the big guy. It's about the billionaires. And
you'd like it to be that way, but that's not the truth. That's not the data.
Your argument,
the numbers do not show it that way.
Then why is it that from the 1940s until the 1980s, before Reagan changed these tax rules, we had not only the strongest middle class in America, we had high levels of corporate tax compliance. Corporations during the Eisenhower administration accounted for 36% of all government revenues. It's now 11% of all government revenues, which means that you and I as average taxpayers are having to pay almost 90% of government revenues, while the corporations are richer than ever.
Okay, so what happened after World War II? We were able to spend a lot of money and American lives to protect freedom, to protect Europe. And after that, World War II decimated the top economies around the world. And we had a dividend from the amount of investment that we made into World War II. We were the top country. That's not the case anymore.
Exports went up by 2%.
When you look at the top countries under the OECD numbers, we have the top rate. So you can argue about the rate. Should it be 28%? Should it be 25%? But we should not be dead last with the highest corporate tax rate, because now...
I've already told you I don't disagree with that, but I'm saying that if we don't do something about the fact that billionaires and corporations can buy politicians, you're going to have a lower tax rate, and those loopholes are still going to be there.
Well, I come from the perspective, I'm a lawyer, I advise small businesses. So when I think of corporations, I think of the moms and dads who own the corporations. I think of the female entrepreneurs.
That's not where the problem exists.
And those are the people who are squeezed. Those are the people who are squeezed because they don't have the same deductions. They don't have the same ability to...
They can't buy a politician.
And they can't move offshore either. So we need to change that, not only for keeping these companies resident in the United States, but also for smaller...
You want me to be able to take the company that owns this show and domicile it in Ireland and not pay taxes. Is that what you're saying?
I'd say to fix that problem, I would not try to trap you here by adding more and more law and regulation.
I'm making my money off America.
I would do the simple fix for that and lower the corporate tax rate, because we don't blame Aunt Bertha and Uncle Harvey, who during their working lives live in New York State, and then when they retire, they don't want to deal with those high taxes, so they move to Florida. No one would blame them for moving.
I don't think you're going to find any Democrat who would say, I'm opposed to lowering the corporate tax rates if it's associated with closing the loopholes.
Well, except for Robert Reich, except for Alan Sloan of Fortune. I had two that I named in my piece.
Robert Reich has been explicit that we should close the loopholes.
No, they think that we should shame U.S. corporations. And the truth is there's an easy fix that is an American fix, too.
Yeah, cut their taxes. Yeah, it worked really great. You know, Reagan cut taxes for billionaires, and now we've got the biggest income
billionaires. I'm talking about the moms and dads who own these corporations.
That was my point. You know, during the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. Well,
when we had no competition.
It's a straw man. Gail Trotter, GailTrotter.com.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.